This is part 6 of Introduction to Adobe Illustrator Vector Drawing. In this tutorial series, we're going to flatten out our layers, and we're actually going to apply this head to a magazine layout, I believe. I think that's what we should work on to show you some of the rest of the tools that Illustrator has to offer. I'm going to start with creating a new document so I can have a fresh layout. I'm going to go up to File, New, and I'm going to set the profile to print and make sure I set it to inches so I know it's 8.5 by 11. I am going to set the number of artboards, that's this white panel here, to let's say 2 for this new one. And I can choose how it's going to be laid out. Let's see here. I think that's fine. Columns 2, yeah, that's good. So every time I create a new artboard, it's going to be in this type of layout. I'm actually going to switch it to single down, or do I want to just go? I'm just going to actually consecutively create artboards to the right. So I'm going to choose this option. I'm going to set it to RGB, and everything else should be fine. So I'm going to click OK. I'm going to come up to File, Save, and we'll save this as Magazine. And I'm saving it into the Illustrator Vector Art folder. Magazine Design, Save. And Illustrator CC, we're good with that. Click OK. Okay, so if you're running older versions of Illustrator, and I'm talking about really old versions of Illustrator, you're not going to get artboards. I think they added this maybe 2 or 3 versions back, maybe 3 or 4, I don't remember. But anyway, it's a nice feature that gives you the ability to create multiple different panels in the same file, and then you can actually save it out as a PDF document that has multiple different pages. Each one of these would be a page. The way artboards work is you have to actually click into it to activate it. You can see this little black line around the artboard. When I click, if I come up to Window and scroll down to Artboards, you'll notice that here's my window for artboards. It tells me which one I have activated. Okay, so you can do this way. This is also how I can add a new artboard as well, just by clicking this icon right here. And you can see now I have 3 artboards. So I'm going to go ahead and delete the new one. Don't need it right now. Okay, so starting off with my first artboard, I am going to go get our vector image that we had. So let me go ahead and make sure everything's unlocked except for the reference image. I don't need that. Everything else is unlocked. I'm going to click over everything so it's all selected, and I'm going to hit Control C on the keyboard, or come up to Edit, Copy, come back over to Magazine and go Edit, Paste, or Control V. I'm going to want to scale my head to fit my artboard. However, right now the hair is actually strokes. Remember when we drew the lines and then we applied a stroke? That means they're not going to scale correctly. In fact, let me demonstrate. Look where the hair is right now on the ear. If I scale this down, nope, sorry, there we go. Please don't do this because it takes time to do this. I just want to demonstrate this. Let me click off it. You can see here now the hair is not aligning correctly. And that, again, because this is their stroke. So we have to fix this. So I'm going to undo this, Control Z. Okay, to fix it, what we need to do is select the hair, go inside of it, and click on the strokes, and we're going to come up to Object, Path, Outline Strokes, and that actually creates them as fills instead of strokes. You can see here. So now they'll scale correctly. So let me go back to the top, click on the back hair, double click, select them, and go Object, Path, Outline Strokes. Okay, so now we have that fixed. I probably should do the lashes, but I didn't see really an issue with the lashes, so I think I'm going to leave them. Let me see here. Yeah, I think I'm going to leave them. So let me go ahead and zoom back out so I can select everything. Let me go back to the top layer. Okay, so we've got all the hair done. We fixed this. Now let's go ahead and group this whole thing together. Let's go Object and go Group. And let's go ahead and scale everything down. And now we can fit it into our document. And I might scale this up a little bit later. Okay, so it's set as a group. You can see here group. I'm going to call this layer head. And I'm going to go ahead and lock it. And I'm going to create a new layer. And this layer, I'm going to call it text. Okay, so let's start with the title. Let's take the text tool. So that's this tool right here. Now if you click and hold it down, you get lots of options. We'll go through these options here in a sec, but let's start with the normal type tool. And here it's called type tool. It's text tool or type tool. Here it's type tool. All right, so you can see you have the properties up here for your type tool. If you click on these highlighted options, you'll get more properties for the type tool. You can also switch your layout or go up to Window and open up the character tabs. I don't exactly remember where the character tabs are in here. I think it's under type. Yep, here we go. So here's all the character options. Or like I said, you can just switch your layout. So if I come here and do typography, it will change the layout to suit more of a character typography setup. I can also go to Window, Workspace, Typography if you don't have the option up here. Okay, so I just accidentally created some text. Let me go ahead and delete that. All right, the way, again, we're on our new layer. We locked everything else. Let's go ahead and take the type tool and address some of these things. So let's go ahead and just type. So I'm going to click in here, and I'm going to start typing for the title. So Vector, I'm going to call this magazine Vector Up. All right, so you notice it's really small. Type is 12. If I try to change the type right now, I'm inside the font. In fact, let me just hit space and change it. I can choose a preset, or I can manually type in, or I can just click these little arrows. It's up to you. Let's do 72. And you notice nothing happened, but if I keep typing is the best, you'll notice that now this text is really tall and this one is not. And that's because the way the type tool works is that if you change any of the settings, it's only going to change it to what you're about to type or what you have selected. So if I select like is and change it back down to 12, it will change back down to 12. Nothing else. I can do individual letters. All right. So I don't need all this. I'm going to go ahead and delete it. Delete, delete, delete. Okay, so that's the way it works. Whether you're changing the font type, if you're changing the size, if you're changing paragraph options, or you're even changing any of these settings over here, it only changes to what you have selected. So if you want to change everything, take your black arrow tool and select your text. And now if I type in, let's say 72, you'll notice the whole thing changes. And that's because the whole thing is selected. And let's choose a way better font than this. And there's a couple ways to do it. Just scroll through your font options. You can add fonts from Adobe Typekit, which is really cool. There's a lot of good fonts there and a lot of web-friendly fonts. For right now, I'm going to go ahead and choose the very top one. I'm going to click inside of here, and I'm just going to scroll through until I find a font I liked. I like that one. I like that one a lot, actually. But anyway, I'll just keep scrolling through. I'm using the down arrow to scroll through, or you can use the middle mouse scroll wheel while you're inside the box. See? So I'm rolled over the box and I can scroll through the text. Scrolling down or up, it's up to you. So this is how you can quickly look for font for your project. It's kind of clean too. And you can check to see if it has a bold option. Yeah, but I think I really like that first option that was way at the top. It's this one. And I don't have a bold option for it, so I'm going to have to stick with the, I think I'm going to have to find something else because I need to have an option. Well, I don't need. Let's try it. I'm going to stick with that, my first decision. Okay, so Vector Up. Now, I don't also have to manually type in values up here. I can actually just grab this text by the corner and scale it up. Okay, so that's very useful. We're going to talk about this little dot here in a sec. It changes this box. Right now this box is set to where I can scale the text and position it without a problem. Okay, so I'm thinking something like this for my Vector Up. Now I'm going to come over to my character panel over here and let's address a few things. Now if you're not seeing everything that I'm seeing here, just click this double arrow and it will hide and unhide certain aspects of the window. So you can see here now I see everything. Let me go ahead and hit the double T and you can see everything becomes uppercase. I can do all uppercase but allow the lowercase letters to be smaller. So that's kind of nice. I can choose subscript, so some of the letters to be like up in the corner, like let's say if I'm doing math equation and an exponent. I can do an underline, I can do a line through. So there's a lot of options just to automatically click for my layout. Now I also can come in here, like I said, here's the font size. So let's give this a specific 104 instead of a 104.1. I can come over here. This is spacing between the next, it's leading. And what leading is the spacing between words from top to bottom, and I'm sure that didn't make any sense. So if I had another set of words or letters, this is great, and I don't like the spacing between the two, I can come in here and manually change it, or just type in a value. Okay, so that's leading. It's what it's called. It's because back in the day when they used to lay all this out, they used to put these lead pieces in between the sentences to space them out. I learned that from a graphic designer, or actually I guess he'd be called the lead designer for the studio I work at. Anyway, moving forward, let's see here. So we have the leading, and then we have kerning. So kerning is the space between the letters. So we need to really clean this up. If I click in here and I come over here, I can manually click these arrows, and you'll see that the text is slowly shifting. Let's go just a major number, -100. You can see the whole thing's shifted over. Now, instead of using this over here, I can use the shortcut keys of Alt and left or right arrow, and that's how I can manually adjust the kerning of the text with shortcut keys. So again, that's Alt and left arrow, or right arrow, depending on which way you're trying to kern the letters. I think that the rest of that's fine. Okay, so that's the text kerning. This is you can stretch the height. So let me go back to the whole thing. I can choose to stretch it. You can see it's stretching. Set this back down to 100. I can stretch it on the x-axis. 100. Of course, with the whole thing selected, I can change the kerning here, and it would automatically stretch all the letters. So that's pretty much the main things. I can rotate the letters. Right now I'm going to leave all that alone. So yes, that's these are the controls to control each text or letter, depending on how you've got it selected. I think that's pretty much it for this. And the paragraph options over here, we'll talk a little bit more about that here in a sec, but one thing I don't like is hyphenate when I'm dealing with paragraphs, so I'll turn this off. But you can see here you got all the alignment options, and then choosing how much alignment spacing you have. Okay, so I also have, by the way, this is a new tool. I think this was added to the last version or this version, I don't remember, but the touch type tool that's also found under the text tool right here, which is Shift T. What this does is allows me to gain individual control by clicking on the letter and just dragging. So I'm going to Control Z that. So you can see here that I can move it up, move it right or left. I can scale it. This side is scale, this side is stretch, this is stretch. So this is uniform scale in this corner. This is position. And this right here is rotate, in which I'm on is something that you really can't see if I rotate or not. So let me use this one, rotate. Okay, so a lot of cool options. No. Okay, I'm going to do that. Okay, so anyway, you can see that you have lots of control with the touch type tool. This works really well if you're running on a touch system or a touch screen. It even works well in this type of layout. So instead of trying to manually do it with a cursor with the text tool, let me switch this back to normal type. You can actually do it with grabbing the letter entirely. So that's pretty cool. Anything else about this so far? Vector up. Nope. So let's go ahead and I'm going to scale this up a little bit more, just like that, and let's save it. So I have some text that I've already created. In fact, it's in this notepad file here that I'm going to copy and paste to fill this document out. So I'm going to go back to the text tool. In fact, actually, before I continue with this particular text tool, let me go ahead and click and hold this down and go to the next one. So this is what we call area type tool. This allows me to type within a shape. So let me create a shape real quick. I'm going to go to my pen tool, click, hold down Shift, click. I'm holding down Shift to draw straight lines, by the way. And let me turn off fill for right now. Let me just follow the face. Okay, so now I take my area type tool, I click on the line, and I can start typing. So let's say, okay, so obviously the font's way too big. So let's just drop it down to, let's say, 70. And you can see here that the font is forced to stay within this area that I created. Now that area is not visible, so you can see here I can turn it off, and all I see is the font. I can bring this way down, let's say 40. Come over here to auto. And there you have it. Let me turn off. I don't want this on either. So you got to reset these settings after you've played with them if you don't want them to keep affecting what you're doing. So you can see here that you can create nice conform text, and it, again, no matter what shape you create, it's going to conform to that shape. So let me go ahead and delete this. Okay, so I can actually, the next text down is type along a path. So I can create, let's click on that one. Let's create a path. So same scenario, I'm just going to take my pen tool, draw around, turn off the fill for right now. So I'm going to escape, so I just have the line activated, and go ahead and click on the text tool, click on the path, and I can start typing. I've been able to type along a path, and probably need to bring down the size of the font so I can get read. Okay, so now to play with this, if I go over to the wide arrow tool, the way this works, let me zoom in, is that you have these little lines. So this is the end line, and this dictates where the text ends. This little line right here dictates where it starts, so I can choose a start and end point. And this little line right here chooses which side of the path I'm drawing on. Okay, anyway, so I'm messing it all up, but you can see that's how you can control the text along the path. Let me go ahead and delete this. So that's path along or text along a path, text in a shape area. Now these are the same, but these are vertical type, just to show you. Let me click this and type. And you see it's typing vertically, and of course it's got all the options you need for conform an area and along a path for vertical type, and we've already covered the type tool. Okay, so that's all the type options that you have. So as I'm going to go through, I'm going to go ahead and take this, because this might get in the way because I want to add text below it. What I'm going to do is let me go to Window and Layers. Let me get my Layers panel in here. Let me drag it over here. Oh, I forgot to mention, here's your glyphs tab right here where you've got all the glyphs options, and you can choose, again, font options for your glyphs. This one doesn't have a lot of glyph options for this particular font. Each font will have its own set of glyphs. You've got your under or stroke options, gradient fill, so on and so forth. So just showing you that's the glyph tab. We didn't cover that. Okay, so I've got my text here. I'm actually going to lock this layer because, again, like I said, unfortunately, the way Illustrator works, that even if I click, let's say, near it, you see this box down here, it selects it. And if I'm trying to create text below it, that can become very problematic. So I'll lock it, create a new layer, and I'll combine all these layers later. But for right now, I just don't need it in my way. So I'm going to go back to my normal type tool. And like I said, I already typed out some things that I'm copying from a notepad file. So let me go ahead and copy and paste. All right, so let's say 15. It's a little too small, so let me scale it up a little bit. And in this case, I'm going to increase the distance between the letters, the kerning. So let me go, okay, kerning is right here, 50, there we go. Let's go 60. This is for start of the text point, sorry. Let's see here, maybe a little bit more. In fact, let me take this to paragraph options. I'm going to choose center, align. In fact, I'm going to do that for this top one as well. Oops, I have it locked. Click here, center, and let me go back to character. Now I want to make sure both these are centered to my artboard, so I'm going to come up to here and make sure it's set to align to artboard. And I'm going to click this option right here. And that's going to align it to the artboard, which is really nice. So I'm going to click here and I'm going to choose. Okay, so there's my tagline. Let's go ahead and add more text. So that's the two text options just for clicking, but let's say I want to have a forced box. Instead of doing it, drawing out a shape, I just want a forced box. So I'm going to click my text tool here, and I'm going to click and drag to create a forced box. Now if let me copy. Okay, so now if I copy and paste that text into here, you can see that it's forced. If I just keep typing, see, you can see that it forces it to stay in the box. So let me go ahead and delete. Okay, so you notice that if I click on this little icon right here, I can switch it back to, sorry, double click, switch it back to a box where I can change the scale. The other box, let me double click it again. I cannot change the scale. All it does is change the scale of the box to allow me to conform the box differently, as you can see. Okay, so I can stretch the base down and keep squashing it just like this. So there's a lot of options here for the text box. And again, this is a separate type of text box. This will allow me just to conform the box directly to whatever text I have, double clicking that bottom piece. All right, so that's the two ways of doing the regular text tool. I almost forgot to mention it. So the click and drag creates a box. Even if I don't click and drag, let's say I'm going to come here and do this again. Let me just click and paste. I can always, again, this is the normal box that scales when I move it. I can always double click this, and now it's the conform box. And I think this double click option is more of a newer function. So if you're running an older version of Illustrator, you probably do not have that. You're stuck to whatever box you create initially. So let's come in here. I have, let's say in this corner, I want to do 20. And I'm going to scale this guy way up. Below this, I want to use 20 vector secrets. So I have that. I'm going to copy it and paste it. So 20 vector secrets, I can scale this up, and I don't have to use the extreme kerning that I'm using right now. So let me bring it down to, let's say 50, maybe even 0. And next I'm going to do what I was just working with a second ago. So I'm going to click and drag a box for this. Control V, professional typography tools. And what I'm going to do here, in fact, actually, let me delete this. I'm going to do separate it in 2 different lines. Actually, no, let me do it all in one element, sorry, like I was just about to do. And I'm going to apply a bold. So if I click, ooh, this one doesn't have a bold option for the text. That's a bummer. I think I'm going to choose a different font for the rest of these elements, just because let me click this guy first, then this one. And this one, I would like to have the control to have the top bold and the bottom not, to emphasize certain things. So let me scroll through until I find another font. Now, having 2 different fonts on a magazine cover is okay. In fact, actually nowadays people do like 10 different fonts. I don't think that's a good idea. Not to knock anybody designing magazine covers, I just think it starts to look chaotic in my personal opinion. I try to keep it clean. So let's see if I can find something. Okay, so this one has a bold option as well. So let me stick to regular, and I am going to bold this one. And I'm going to scale this one down, just like that. And actually, I don't like the distance between the 0 and the 2. So let me set this back down to 0. And now I've got to readjust this one. Something like that. Okay, so now I have 20 vector secrets. This one should not be bold. Good, it's not. And let's keep going. So this top piece, I want bold. And I'm actually going to increase the size a bit too. And the bottom piece, I'm good with the fact that it's not bold, but I want to stretch it out to being the same size as the professional typography. So let's go ahead. And do I want to actually, or do I just want to change the alignment? I'm going to go with the alignment. I am going to change the distance though. Yep, something like that. Okay, so I'm going to just copy this box. Let me bring this up. Control C, Control V, because I'm going to repeat this process. So the next set, I'm going expert layer blending. Control V. And I'm going to do learn layer blending secrets. Okay. So let me change the font size to the second part. In fact, actually, let me open this up so I can select all the second part. All right, let's bring this down till it all jumps to one layer and fits underneath. Let's go 10.5, maybe 10.4. Okay, like that. And let's move this back up. Control C, Shift Control V to paste. Shift Control V, paste in place, by the way. Let's go ahead and copy this next set. Of course, if you're not copying and pasting, you're typing the stuff out. I just went around looking at different magazine covers to see what text I'd want to add to this. So let's see, land that job, and then last but not least, let me copy this, Control C, Control V, Control C, Control V, by the way, excuse me. Okay, so I have my different types that are going to sit on my portfolio piece, and of course I might go through and change the type after I really work on the layout. Okay, so let's zoom out here. Let's save this real quick. Okay, so I'm going to really start playing with the layout. I'm going to add a new layer. I'm going to lock my two type layers for right now. And on my new layer, I'm going to draw a box. Now, I'm going to fit this box into the edges of this document. I'm just going to go up to View and Smart Guides right here. And this will allow me to scale snap this box into the corners, just like this. Okay, now I'm going to set the fill to none, but I want the border. So here's my border. I'll change the color in a sec. Let's change the size of the stroke to, let's say, 10. Now I'm also going to change the position of the stroke. So I'm going to click on the word stroke here, and I want it to be on the inside. And 10's not enough. Let's go 15. Let's go 20. Maybe 15 was a bit better. Maybe 17, somewhere in between. Okay, there we go. I like that. Okay, so now I have my kind of a border. I can call this border, or just B for border. And I'm going to lock it for right now. I'm going to actually set my head on top. I'm going to make it one of the top layers, not above the border. Although it might be kind of interesting to maybe have the hair behind the border and the chin above it. We'll play with that here in a bit. So I'm going to position my head. I don't like the position right now, so let's go ahead and select the head, unlock it, select it. I'm going to scale it up a bit. Okay, so I have the head in place. Definitely going to want to rearrange some of these to get them to fit correctly with this. But at first I want to actually mask out the head so it's not falling off my artboard. So let's go ahead and actually unlock B. In fact, let's create a new layer. I'm going to select B. I'm going to hold down Control C, click on my new layer, Shift Control V to paste it in place. I'm going to move it below B, relock B. Okay, so this one I'm going to change to being a fill but white, just like we've done before, nothing new. And everything else is locked, so I can drag select over my layer, my excuse me, my mask layer and my head. And let's just jump over to my other layout. And right here in Transparency tab, click Mask. All right, so that forces the head to sit inside the box area. Then I don't have to worry about it falling off the artboard. Okay, so my head's in. Let's go ahead and start rearranging the type. So I'm just going to shut up now and speed this up because, I mean, it's just using the move tool to position things. Okay, so you can see here that I finished laying it out. I'm going to fix the lower text part and make them all even as well for each one of these, meaning the same scale because it looks awkward right now. But however, I think everything else is good. Now, I was using some align tools, by the way. If you select multiple objects, make sure that you are set to align to selection, and then I distributed right here, and that allows everything to be distributed evenly between, so the space between the boxes. Now, you got to make sure though when you do this, none of these boxes have these weird extra amounts of space, because that's going to throw it off. See? Okay. So let's go in here, and I'm just going to take my type tool, and let's say this one is, let's go 12. All right, so that looks better. Now, I want to kind of frame these text pieces to give it a little bit more style. In fact, actually, because I'm going to frame it, I'm going to bring this guy up. Let's realign these pieces, or redistribute. There we go. Okay, so I want to have maybe a box that goes behind her head. And so let's go ahead and actually let's combine text layers now. So I'm going to go ahead, let me lock this, make sure everything else is locked so I can select all the text, unlock the text layer, and drag and drop. So this is all my text. We're good with that. I'm going to move it up. So I'm going to call this text back, and let me, let's see here, lock text layer. Okay. So maybe I want to create, I'm going to click this icon right here. This, if I click and hold it down, gives me extra shapes. I'm going to stick with the square shape right now. And on my text back, I am going to click and drag a box. And because my text is black, you're not going to see anything. So we're going to go ahead and lock this layer, go back to my text layer, select all these text pieces, and let's change them to, well, let me just change the top one to white right now. So same thing, I'm going to copy. In fact, actually, to be honest, I'm thinking maybe a different color altogether. I'm going to start with the border. Let's change the border to an orange. Okay, now I'm going to click my text box, and I'm going to, if I sample the border, it's going to change my text box to a border. So I just need to flip it, and there we have it. Otherwise, if you don't want that to happen, what you could do is take your text box, double click on the colored border, and just copy this right here, Control C, and then go apply that to the box. If I double click on the box color, I can paste it right here. So that's another way of pasting color options. Okay, so I have land that job. I could leave the text as black, but I think leaving it as white is kind of nice. So let's go ahead and copy this box. Control C, Control V, and just repeat this process. Control C, I'm just going to do Shift Control V so I can just use my arrow tools to move it straight down. And Control C, Shift Control V. I can even, what I'm thinking is, notice that these are black. I definitely like the white on, oops, let me lock the back layers, the white text on the orange. Okay, so I have white, and let me do, I'm thinking maybe one across the base here. So let's say, and I just put that on the wrong layer, so I'm going to unlock this layer, drag it to this layer, and I'm going to sample the other text boxes. I don't know why that went black. Now it's going gray. That's really weird. So let me just grab that color. Let me lock everything. Okay. Now let me try color sampling. I don't know why it's fighting me. That's weird. Okay, so let me just make sure I get the right color. Oops, I went inside of it. Did not want to go inside of it. Double click here. And copy and paste this, Control C, click on this guy, paste. Okay, let's unlock it, change this text to white. So that's given a different style and look to the magazine cover, a little bit better. Still want to play with a few things. So let me go ahead and save this. I'm going to close this tab. Let's move 20 secrets down a little bit more. So click on it, just frame it inside this box using the arrow tools on the keyboard. Okay, so this is going to be my base template. It's not an amazing design, but it works for a base. So this is going to be my artboard one. I'm going to go ahead and move everything to this same layer. So let me unlock everything and select it and just start dragging the colored boxes from one layer to the next, just like that. So now they're all on the same layer. You can come in here and see that all my text options and elements are in this particular layer. Okay, so I'm going to call this page 1, and I'm going to lock it. I'm going to take these 2 pages right now, or layers, and delete them. I'm going to call this page 2. Okay, so in fact I need to unlock page 1, and I'm going to select everything on page 1. I'm going to hit Control C, and I'm going to go to page 2. Let me lock page 1. So all right, I'm on page 2. Let's go ahead and make sure I'm in page 2 artboard. Okay, so yep, we're on artboard 2, and I'm going to go ahead and paste Control V. So let's go ahead and get this guy to fit. So I'm going to grab it up here and just slide it until it matches the layout. In fact, let's go ahead and zoom in. Luckily, I've got my border to really tell it's laying out correctly. This artboard is in here. Oh, see, this one's slightly off too. So let me unlock page 1 and grab this on the edge here. So I'll do the same thing. Lock page 1, go back to page 2. All right, so there's my vector art page 1. Looks like everything else is fine. Although I'm viewing this at a 400%, so most likely you wouldn't see that fully scaled, but it's okay. I want to make sure it's good. Okay, so I'm going to lock page 1, go back to page 2. So I'm going to lay out things a little bit differently. First, I'm going to take my head and I'm going to scale her down. Okay, so let me go ahead and take the mask on this, go over to, I'm in type. Let me switch this over to Nate. And let's go to the mask layer. I'm going to just use my arrow tools, or not. There we go. Okay, and in fact I can squish this down. It doesn't need to be so big. I can also, I keep forgetting, I can unlock the 2 elements. That way I can move one around without moving the other. So if I still needed to scale her up or down this item, it's not going to scale up or down the mask because I've unlocked them. Okay, so now that I have my head in my shot, I want to play with a few things with this. So let me go ahead and open this up. I'm going to lock everything else for right now. Okay, and I'm thinking maybe to have these rings around the head. So I'm going to go ahead and jump over to my panel here, and I'm going to use ellipse tool, and I'm going to draw on a layer below. Hold down shift and draw ring. Okay, why is this ring? Oh, it's being put on the ellipse up here. Sorry, it created its own layer. So I don't need this layer here. Let me grab this one and move it down. That's right, because these are internal layers. So anytime I create something, it's going to create its own layer. Okay, so I'm going to move this into position. In fact, actually, what I think I'm going to do is apply it inside of the head. So let me go ahead and hit Control X to cut it. And you can go edit. Let's see here. cut right here, Control X, and I'm going to double click on the head. Okay, so now I'm inside that group. I'm going to hit Control V to paste it, and let me open this up. You'll notice that it pastes it as the top layer. And I don't want this at the top, so I'm going to just right click here, and I'm going to go Arrange, Send to Back, instead of trying to drag through the layers. Oops, Arrange, Send to Back. There we go. So now I can position this. And let's say, I'm going to have to play with the mask. You're seeing the mask get clipped. But I think the first ring, let me just lock everything else. That's why it's so important to work with layers. Alright, so I'm going to leave the fill, but I am going to create a stroke. So let's go ahead, and this time, maybe instead of using orange for this layout, I'm going to use, and let's increase the strokes width, something like that. Okay, so let me continue to push this around. I can give this back area a gradient. So if I click on this and click on this icon right here, it applies a gradient. Now we're not seeing much. It's a radial or a linear gradient. You can come over to the gradient tab here. You can see it's linear. Right now it's set to a grayscale though. So I'm going to go ahead and click on this icon right here. Come up to my color tab. Click here and choose RGB. And do the same thing with this one. And you'll watch this turn to complete black RGB. So now I have the white and black, but I can change these colors. So let's double click on, let's start with the black. So the black, let's say I do a really deep blue. Just really deep. Okay. And then I take the white and I apply just a tint. Like I said, right now it's on a radial setup, so I can choose, or sorry, linear. I can add little markers in here by clicking. I don't want to do that, so I'm going to click and drag to get rid of them. That way I can apply multiple different color rings if I want. But if I go to radial, you'll see that now it's a radial fall off in this little pocket. And of course I can swap these two colors, so it can start from white and go to dark. So there's a lot of options on how I control the radial here. But I also can come over to this tool right here, and this is the gradient tool. This allows me to control gradients, so you can see I can rotate it, little rotate icon. In the radial, it's not going to see anything different when you rotate it. I can choose the position of the color, where it starts and stops. So that's pretty nifty. And I can even scale the whole color layout if I want. I can, let's see here, change the start position of the gradient. Let me undo that. And I can grab this point up here and literally change the actual physical shape of the scale or the gradient tool. So let me just go ahead and undo all that. You'll see more of those options with linear. And let's go back to the stroke. I don't like the stroke color. So let's go ahead and double click here, play with it. Okay, so I like this first ring, but I'm going to create a couple more without a fill. So let me go ahead with it selected. I'm going to hit Control C, Shift Control V to paste in place. I'm going to go ahead and turn off fill. And I'm going to just scale it up a bit. Control C, Shift Control V, paste in place. Control C, Shift Control V, and maybe one more. Control C, Shift Control V. Okay, so there's my rings. Now the mask is cutting them off, so I need to fix all that. So let's go ahead and go back to the top. Hit this back arrow, and I'm going to jump back, select it, go over to transparency, click on mask, and fix all this. There we go. Okay, so first things first, I do not want my head to be the top layer like I had it on this side. So I'm going to go ahead and jump back over to this setup here. And with this selected, I'm going to go ahead and right click and say arrange, send to back. Why are we not sending this to back? There we go. All right, so now everything's on top. Now I'm going to play with how these vector tabs are going in. So I'm going to change everything to this blue that I use for the rings. So let me copy this code. Let's go ahead and unlock everything. Paste. All right, so I'm going to jump back into the head real quick. Let me double click, come into here, and I'm going to move the head. Double click. Oops, did not want to go into that group. Back. I have everything locked. That's the problem. So let me click and drag to unlock all these elements. In fact, actually, while I'm in here, I'm going to do two things. Now that I've unlocked these elements, I'm going to select, let me lock the rings layer. So I can drag select, whoops, lock, 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 lock. Okay, so that should be, all the rings layers are now locked. So I'm going to drag select over my head. I am going to maneuver her head over a little bit more to be more inside the head, or inside the rings. I think that's better. And in fact, let me just do a little bit more. And the next thing I want to do is actually on this one, I'm going to get rid of all the nice fall off gradients, the blurring that we applied to this. So I want to remove all the blur effects to everything that I've applied here. Now, there's probably not going to be a shortcut way of doing this. You can try selecting one, come over to the appearance panel, click on Gaussian blur, go up to select, same, appearance attribute, and you'll see that it will select more than one, but these two apparently shared the same settings, and then I can just hit delete. And then I can try continuing this, select, select, same attribute, and nothing else shares it, and then I can hit delete. So it looks like really I'm going to have to go through here and manually do it. So I'm going to go ahead and just speed through this so you guys don't have to watch me do it, and I will pick this back up once I'm done. Okay, so I think I got all the effects blurs applied to each element, I think. So I'm going to go ahead and jump back out of this. Okay, and then let's see here. Let's go ahead and start playing with layout. In fact, let's minimize this. We don't need this open. So I can start changing the way my text is laid out. And what I could do is play with, let me grab this point here. Again, I'm using the white arrow tool. And this point. Now, if I want to make it art, just in case I don't want it clipping, what I could do is click on one of these points. Let's say this one, I'm going to move it over just a little bit more. If I wanted to make it art, all I need to do is click this and adjust the handles. But I'm not going to worry about that because that works right there. So I think the next one I'm actually going to break down into 2 lines. Right, and that's good. So just go ahead and keep doing this, and what you're doing is, let me zoom out, is making the tabs look like they're coming out of the rings. Okay, so that adds a little bit of a different look. I'm going to actually select the text here. on all these and just scoot them over a little bit so they're not so close to the edge on this side. That works. All right. Is there anything else? Probably. Oh, let's see what happens when I take 20 and color sample. So that's pretty much it for a new layout, but let me talk about a few new tools. Number one, let's say I wanted to do something different with this 20, like really spice it up, modify it. You can actually modify the text, but you lose the ability to keep typing it out. So if you do this, you have to know that this is the way you want your font to be or your type to be. So a better example, actually, let me play with the logo. In fact, actually, let's save this real quick. Okay, so with the text selected, make sure it's selected, we're going to come up to Type, Create Outlines right here. Shift-Control-0 is the shortcut key. So what this does, turns it into a vector shape. Now again, I can't type anything, so if I click Type tool, you'll notice that it doesn't recognize it as type. It's a vector object. So I can come in here now and play with different elements of this vector object. So let's say I wanted to take this E right here, these two dots, and drag them all the way over to my T, just to create something slightly different. And I can take my C right here. In fact, let me double click on my C. And with it selected, I'm going to go ahead and use my black arrow tool just to scale it down a bit. Just a little. And same thing with my O. I have to use the white arrow tool to select the handles of that particular object. Then I can use my black arrow tool to scale it down just a bit. So now I can change, you can see that I'm changing the logo. And like anything else, I can add points. Let's say I wanted to come in here with the pen tool. I'm going to go to Add Anchor Point. Let's say this one right there. And I'm going to add one more. I'm going to actually bring this one up a little bit. Add one more anchor point. Okay, so with this anchor point selected in this one, I'm going to hold down Shift and drag it over. I'm going to take this anchor point and this, let me move this anchor point down a little bit. If I wanted to make sure they were even, just select both of them and use Align. Now I can grab these two. I'm going to zoom out. Okay, so with those two selected, I'm just going to drag all the way over to my R. And up, or the U, let me just scale it up a bit. All right, so you can see that I'm able to change the text into something new, a little more interesting. And of course, I can always go back to my original logo, which is still editable. So let me go ahead and take the 20 here and do the same thing. Type, Create Outlines. All right. Now, I have the ability to use some tools to really modify this. And I'm going to go to this section here. You have a rotate tool, reflect tool that's right above it. This one's scale, shear, and reshape. But this one right here has a lot of cool functions. There's the width tool, which deals with, how do I put this? Basically edges. So let me actually just show you. So this element here, can I even select it or do I have it locked? I think I have it locked. So let's go inside of here. And open this up, scroll all the way down to the bottom. Okay, so let me just unlock all this. Let me click this here and choose this tool right here. And I can actually scale up and scale down and scale up the stroke. So I can change how the stroke's laid out. So I'm going to undo all that because I don't want to do that to this. But it's a cool tool to modify strokes. So let me go ahead and come back out of here. Okay, so let me go back to locking the head layer. So I have this 20 here. I'm going to click and hold this down. I have these options right here. So let's say warp tool. These are like the liquefy tools in Photoshop. Now, if I just click and drag, you'll notice that it kind of liquefies what I'm clicking and dragging. Now, a lot of people complain about settings. They don't know where to change the settings in this. All you need to do is double click on the tool and it will pull up the settings menu. So the size of the brush, the angle of the brush, the intensity, the detail, the simplicity or simplify. So there's lots of options to change in here. I'm going to go ahead and hit cancel. I'm going to jump over to another one, the Twirl tool. Okay. And I am going to double click on it because I want to slow down not only the twirl rate. I can play with the intensity here, but I'm going to lower the twirl rate. Click OK. Now also there are some settings to modify the brush directly in the palette. In fact, let me just come over here. If I hold down Alt and drag, I can scale the brush, but if I hold down Shift and Alt, I can uniformly scale the brush. So if I want to stretch it or squash it, I can do it, or I can hold down Shift and keep scaling or descaling my brush size. All right, so that again, that's Alt and Shift. I don't think there's any other shortcut key for this. No, it's just Alt and Shift. And like I said, anything else you want to double click on here to change. And like let's say I double click here, I think there's a pin pressure option as well if you're using a Wacom tablet. So that's pretty nice. So let me go ahead and hit cancel. And I'm going to go Alt and Shift, scale it up a little bit. And let me just tap. And you can see here I can change the way this is stroking in. So let me go ahead and undo that. I'm going to double click on the tool settings. There's a few things I want to bring up. So simplify, I'm going to bring this up a bit, but I want more detail as well. Click OK. All right, something like that. And I can come over to this one over here. And the brush is too big, so let me go ahead. In fact, actually, I want to do something different with this one. So let me go ahead and click and hold this down and go to Crystallize tool. And the way this works, if I click and drag into it, it's going to crystallize into the whatever I'm selecting. Or if I click and drag out of it, it's going to crystallize out. So that's pretty cool. Now what I want to do is Control and Alt, scale my brush way down. I'm going to crystallize out. In fact, I'm going to undo that. I'm going to select this layer. Where is it at? I'll lock it. So now I can just focus on this, and let's go ahead and click on this tool, Control Alt, scale it up. And again, if you double click, you can change its settings. So maybe something like that. And is there anything else I want to play with? Maybe, let's see, path. I would have to, it's not going to work on paths. That's the border piece. I would actually have to, actually, what is the border piece? This one way up here. I would have to convert this outline to a fill to be able to apply it. So let's go ahead and do that. Let me select it. Go over to Object. We're going to come down to Path, excuse me, and we're going to go over to Outline Stroke. Okay, so now that we have the stroke outlined, I can come over to this tool and tap some stuff in. I don't want to do it to the outside, so let's go ahead and Alt. And double click on the tool. In fact, actually, I know a better way of fixing this. I'm going to grab this point for right now. I'm going to hold down Shift. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Just for right now. Just so I can grab this tool. Now we're, oh, let me click off of it. There we go. Okay, something like that. Let me go ahead and put this point back. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. So I can keep going through and adding various different elements just to spruce it up. Let me go back down to the corner here, do the same thing. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Nope. I keep forgetting I've got the point selected. Let me increase my brush size a bit. Whoops. And replace, put this back. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, so that's layout 2. And you can see that I've added a few more effects. Made it look a little bit different. Actually, it's a lot different, but changed the layout some just to make it more interesting. Of course, I can play with font more. I can make certain letters bigger and smaller and really start to spruce this up. But you guys should be getting an idea of the tools, because I can spend all day doing different designs and layouts to this. Let's see here. Is there anything else that I want to go over? Probably switch this to a blue. I know it's hard to read, but it still looks nicer than that black. And maybe even change my title, which I have locked. Okay, and like I said, if you want a new artboard, you just click here and then you can throw together a whole new design and copy and paste it, because this is my page 2. So I'm going to unlock page 1 and 2, and there's one more thing I'm going to do before I call it quits to this tutorial, and that is edit, check spelling. And I'll start, and VECTOR. Oh, it's asking me to capitalize vector. Yeah, I guess I can do that, change. So it asked me to change it over here too, and done. If I'm going to do that, I might as well just set this to capital S as well. Okay, so vector secrets, I had no other spelling errors, and we're good to go. Now, let's go ahead and file save this. Last but not least, I want to save this out, so we're going to go to as a PDF document, because you know how to save it as an Illustrator file, but we're going to go save as. We're going to choose PDF, magazine design, version 1, and everything else is good. Save. It's going to pull up a secondary window. Okay, so this is very important. If you need to send a high-res version of this, you can pretty much leave everything. You can even choose actually highest quality print. That's really nice if you're, again, trying to print this, or you need a really high-res copy to send to someone, but it's going to create a big file. In fact, let me go ahead and do that real quick. I'm going to choose highest quality print, optimize for, I don't need it optimized, web page thumbnails, or embed page thumbnails, yeah, might as well, and view PDF after saving, don't need to do that. Okay, so everything else is set to a really high res. I'm going to change the Acrobat to at least 7, and I can choose even to have layers with the Acrobat 7. See if 8 has any extra options. Nope. So I keep it at 7, just one version below, just in case somebody is not up to date with their Acrobat. And I'm going to go ahead and click Save PDF. So I'm going to pull this over here. You'll notice that here's Mag Design version 1. Sorry, my throat's starting to give out. So it's 19 megs, massive file, absolutely massive file. I can double click on it. So it opens up in Illustrator and my page 2. So let me go ahead and close this just to show you guys the difference. Let's go File, Save As, Mag Design 2, Save, definitely a PDF. Now make sure you save your Illustrator file before you do all this. We're going to switch this down to smallest file size. Just leave it at that. And optimize for fast web preview, save PDF. And come over here, so this is version 2. You can see it's just a little over a meg, almost 2 megs, but this can be emailed. So this is something that you can send to clients as proofs. It's still a great file because, again, we're working with vector. So everything's going to be super clean. We're seeing this at 159%. So this is like insane how far we've zoomed in. So let me back out. That's 100%. And like I said, this is just a little over a meg. So this is absolutely gorgeous. I think I'm going to change the vector secrets to an orange, but you get the drift. So you can send this out as proofs or put this up on your web page if you're trying to demonstrate your vector artwork. So let me go ahead and close this. And I think that's pretty much it. Go ahead and join me for part 7.